All right, man. Michael, this is going to be fun. So, listeners, we haven't met before, but when we hopped on, I was like, Michael, we've definitely met based off of like, I don't know, your image in your face pre peanut butter on your lip. But quick context. So, co-founder of Talent Sam, acquired by Simera, and literally, we just can't wait to learn. And so, I guess like let's start with literally how you got peanut butter on your lip, and then we'll go into your journey, and then also like where you located, whereabouts have you all lived? Because this is also I love these like founder episodes where it's like, dude, let's just talk founder to founder. We all know it wasn't a beautiful straight path, right? We all know there were
Oh, yeah.
some months you were just loving it, but yeah, man, let's hear about you.
Thank you. I appreciate it, Matthew. Thank you so much for the opportunity. So why do I have peanut butter on my lip and why am I wearing a shirt that looks like peanut butter? I have a 4.5 month old son named Zev, who's awesome. And he's kind of like, I'm planning on sending him to like the baby Olympics because he's definitely baby jacked. He's always like flexing his muscles and banging his chest. And right before this episode, I needed some fuel. And so I was trying to like hold him and spread peanut butter on crackers. And I managed to get it on my lip, on his clothes. Like, it's okay. He's a happy guy. He doesn't mind, so
Did it work? Is he fed now and happy?
he was not fed, but he was pretty happy. I mean, he just kind of wanted some attention. Then I put him back down and now he's his mom's problem. So,
Well, if he
uh,
wants to come on the pod, man, we can feel free to just go, okay, I'm going to grab him and we'll do a little guest appearance.
pretty man. Like, listen, obviously I know, like, yeah, even if my kid had like a cleft lip, whatever, like some deformity, of course I'd love him. Sure. But I'm like, wow, this kid's like literally like, I'm kind of worried now because if we have a daughter next, I'm worried that every single time I come in the room, I'm just going to faint, you know? So
It's
I'm
so
nervous.
freaking
So.
well. So let's start with the fun stuff, Michael. Like, where'd you grow up? Like, give us the full journey. Cause I saw you was it GW that you went to, but like, where'd you grow up? Where all have you been? Let's start with the fun stuff.
Sure, thank you. So I didn't have a super interesting childhood. I grew up in a lovely little corner of the Midwest called Cincinnati, Ohio. I don't know if you know Cincinnati.
Of course I do. I actually, when we wrote our book, our work sessions were in Cincinnati, and so we had
Really? Okay.
yes, we had what was it? Like the chili is different. Was it like something about the
Yeah,
chili?
Skyline Chili. Everyone likes their grilled
Skyline chili.
chili.
That's what it was. Yes, yes, yes. And then we always went to this place where it was I don't know, it was like a cool little brunch spot, but like cool meaning Cincinnati cool, not like quirky hipster cool. Like Cincinnati cool.
Like like
But
20% Brooklyn cool hipster.
yes, yes, yes. And like, like what are those boots
It's just enough
where
purple haired chicks
they
there just to like believable, you know?
and the boots kind of bounce. Like, you go to sit in the booth and you're like, oh wow, I could like jump on this probably. But yeah, so long story short, very familiar with Cincinnati.
Yeah, yeah. So I grew up in Cincinnati. My parents are originally from Israel, and my parents ended up in Cincinnati before I was born because my mom ended up becoming the concertmaster of the Cincinnati Symphony Orchestra, which like at the time was like pretty big. She's like really good at the violin. She's a fiddler. You know, she made it a little further than the Fiddler on the Roof, uh, and that's the main reason why I grew up in Cincinnati, Ohio. But you know, the neighborhood I grew up in was very international. I had friends, and basically everybody I knew, their parents worked for like big organizations like Procter and Gamble or General Electric, and I had tons of friends who'd spent a couple years of their childhood in like London or in Japan or something like that, because that was just kind of like the nature of the neighborhood. And I always got to like do a bunch of traveling, but I definitely think that a lot of my like really good friends were just like their parents were originally from South Africa or other parts of the world, and they were always going back to these different places. And I just knew since I was a little kid that I really wanted to really just see the world, explore, be adventurous. And I think the way that I would probably kind of define myself, which is I'm not so much of like an adrenaline junkie. I mean, I do like to do kind of like some crazy dangerous stuff. Like, I do like to watch those YouTube videos of like wingsuit diving, where they jump out of the airplane and they're like flying on the wingsuit. Um, it's very cost prohibitive because you need like 250 skydives before you can actually legally do that. I like to drive motorcycles and I used to kite surf and whatnot, but I would definitely say that more than that, I'm probably more of like a social adventurer. I like to put myself in kind of interesting situations and talk to new people and, talk about controversial topics. Cause I like to learn from people. I like to, I'm going to plug my book a little bit. Okay. But,
Please, no, plug it now. Actually,
yeah,
plug it now. Get the plug
Okay.
out as soon as
Well,
possible.
I'll let it up. So I went to university. Well, I guess that's how that's how you say college outside the United States for you American listeners. Okay, I went to university at George Washington University. I studied abroad. I studied international affairs and economics because I thought maybe I'd want to be a diplomat. But then the guy who was kind of like my mentor, in like the diplomatic world, he ended up he was the he ended up becoming the Israeli ambassador to El Salvador, and then he was like caught with like a male prostitute inside the ambassador residence, tied up with a rubber ball in his mouth. And I don't know. He told me what the starting salaries were, and I was like, this just isn't for me, man. Okay.
This isn't working. All of this isn't working for me.
Working for me. I did do an internship at the Israeli embassy, Capitol Hill. It was very kind of, governmental focus, and all that. But at GW, they encouraged everybody to study abroad. Okay. And so I actually, because I was a nice American Israeli Jewish boy, of course, I realized that the only logical place I should study abroad was in Arab Muslim countries. Okay. So because I thought, hey, listen, if you really want to make peace in the Middle East, you got to go there and knock on people's doors and talk about it,
Right. And where'd you go? That's incredible.
So I studied for about like 10 months or so in total in Egypt and the United Arab Emirates. I went to the American University of Cairo for like an extended sort of summer session. And then I spent a semester in Sharjah, American University of Sharjah in UAE. This is before like all of the Abraham Accords, Israel, like UAE. This is really when it was like very heavily influenced by the Muslim Brotherhood. And a big part of my experience was which was not like the case in every single unique circumstance, but for the vast majority of my experiences, I was open about being Jewish. I wasn't necessarily open up about being Israeli, and that led to the creation of my book, which is called "I Am Not a Spy." Okay.
Which isn't that like the first thing you said to me in the first 2 minutes?
Yeah,
like,
yeah, yeah, yeah. I didn't even tell you about the Iranian sex party. Okay?
Yeah, that's what yeah. Are you a spy? No, no, not a spy, man.
So,
I didn't tell you that I have like a survival Mandarin, kind of.
really,
A little bit. Yeah, because I lived in Singapore and like basically lived in China for a little bit. So
wow.
yeah, so very, very similar, and very similar experience where I was kind of told like, oh no, China's going to be like dangerous and dirty, and I show up and I'm like, what the hell? This is incredible. Like, why you guys been gatekeeping this for me? This place is awesome. So, but okay, so you go to UAE and Cairo, and you're openly Jewish, and that leads to the book. So now everyone go grab the book.
I was openly Jewish, and I mean, in Cairo, I was more of like an American program, like for like learning Arabic. So a lot of the kind of like interesting experiences were with people outside the university, more like on the street or in taxi cabs and various places. But when I was in the UAE, I was one of 5 American exchange students in this university of like 4,000 students, about of whom 25% were Emirati, 10% were Saudi, 10% were Iranian, 10% were Palestinian. And basically, when it became discovered, like I basically, my first few days there, people are very friendly. Most people have American level English. It was a very educated population. I'm kind of like their shiny new lighter skinned toy. One of my on the night before university started, like actual classes started, I went out with like all these people to the Mall of the Emirates, which is a very big shopping mall in Dubai, and hanging out and we're getting along. And towards the end of the night, we're all hanging out in a parking lot, and someone just asked, he's like, like, what's your religion? And I was like, I'm a Yehudi, I am a Jew. And basically, like, no one said anything, but their eyes kind of just like popped out, and everyone kind of played it cool that, oh, okay, that's good. Glad to have you here. And basically, the same group of guys kind of ended up becoming like my enemies. And they ended up spreading like tons of rumors. And when basically everybody in the university found out there was a Jew on campus, I became the most popular guy around. Everybody wanted to hang out with me. Everybody, you loved me. You hated me. There was like, the secret police was chasing after me. There was never internet access in my room. I was constantly being interrogated by the mukhabarat. Like other people were interrogated by the mukhabarat. A lot of like my book and everything is actually really about my adventures, kind of engaging with these people and really trying to establish common ground. Me learning about them, they're learning about me, I made like lots of friends, like a bunch of enemies, whatever, and essentially like the positive like point of my book, of course, is that obviously face-to-face interaction, intercultural communication is very important. Obviously, people need to get to know each other. The negative part of my book is I really believe that like this on the societal level, this will ever really be solved. Not really. No.
We're not. Yeah.
I mean, it can be if people really want it to be, but because the Middle East is filled primarily with authoritarian societies, it's primarily a society where like if like the real leadership decides that it's like okay to change directions, everybody will. And the best examples of that are really the UAE, Bahrain, Morocco. It's like all of a sudden it's like okay, they're okay, so let's have like normal communication and all of that. And the book is also about, after I had these experiences, I really wanted to base myself in the Middle East. I decided that I wanted to move back to Israel. And I did the most logical thing for every peace loving person. I joined the Israeli army.
Dude, it keeps getting better. Keep
It is-
going.
And when I was in the Israeli army, I ended up becoming a combat Arabic interrogator and a sniper in a unit focused on urban warfare.
Keep
It's also in
going.
the book. So,
Because I have two stories for you, but I'm going to hold them until you are done because yours are way better.
okay, gotcha. Yeah. Yeah. Look, first of all, in Israel, doing the military is kind of like a rite of passage. I was already a little bit older when I moved back. I was 22, which in military terms is kind of like being a grandfather. I was at the same age as like my company commander. That's how young like people are in terms of like positions of authority. But no, I mean, so I learned Arabic in university. Of course, and as part of these experiences in Egypt, I also went to Lebanon and Syria. I bribed my way across the Syrian border. I have my Hezbollah t-shirt still somewhere packaged away. Funny quick story. Me and one of my friends, one of the Americans, who when basically everybody in the university found out that there was a Jewish person in the university, everyone assumed it was him, not me, because my name is Michael. Why that matters? Who knows? Okay.
Is so well. Okay, so I have two quick ones for you. Okay, so
Go
the
ahead.
first is, and the first one to me is like I would say the most extreme, but like nothing compared to what you're talking about. So when we published our book, yeah, we published it in I think 2019, but at the time I was like a 24, 25-year-old. I don't know, like I'm not even that, like rebellious, but more just like whatever, 24-year-old that grew up in the Northeast, so like pretty liberal in that way, was living in San Francisco and Seattle. And so I thought it would be funny to have a picture where my co-founder or my co-author and I had like a prom pose, And so like we had like a prom pose pic. And then I used it in the book to be like, hey, like even if you're working remote, like you can still be in person and be closer than if you were coming to an office every day. Like, here's the proof. My co-author and I are in a prom pose. So, we're in the publishing, publishing usually takes like 2 years. So we're in that phase and the publisher just keeps taking it out. And mind you, like someone should have told me you're going to regret this when you're, 32, but I just keep being like, no, that's not cool. Like, put it back in, whatever. So it's on page 32. Now, getting to my story. So I'm sitting in Saudi Arabia and there's a conference room and there's probably like 12 people. Now, you know how formal it is there. So this is not like a US, like people hanging back, like talking about their weekend, whatever. Like, no, this is all very formal, buttoned up. There's been gifts and whatever. So I go to gift the book, right? And I got my two hands, like as if it's Asian, I got my two hands on the book and I give it to the prince, I guess. He's in the traditional garb. And as I'm handing it, it hits me. No, what's on page 32? And so we give him the book. And mind you, we have like 100 copies of the book back in the hotel. So we give him the book. And then immediately I have to whisper to my team, you have to get that back. You have to get that back. So we got the book back from him. We went into a restroom. We took out page 32. We went back to the hotel. We went to every single book and we just ripped out page 32. So in the Middle East, there's just not a page 32. I admit, I was gonna say, would you take that risk?
I probably would. I would just try testing. I would just say, hey, I'm gay. I'm gay. I'm not gay.
If I had you, I would have taken the risk, but I didn't. And there was a lot of money on it. But so, okay, now let's dovetail into your first job was the Washington Post. Did my research get that right?
That was a student job primarily. Yeah, I was ad space. Like my first world. I mean, my kind of career arc is very much like started off in sales and marketing, mostly because I was a person who was good at oral and written communication, and I didn't want to go to law school. So what else do? You go into like sales and marketing. My dad's a lawyer, by the way. So I got like a really good student job at the Washington Post. But everything I think I actually learned about sales came from it's not on my LinkedIn profile. I used to sell windows and siding door to door in Cincinnati, Ohio when I was 18 years old. And my boss was like a former heroin trafficker who'd spent 15 years in prison and like found Jesus and but like was still very much into like smoking weed and being with like prostitutes and stuff. And I met him through a friend of mine, a neighbor of mine who's basically a lifeguard at the pool for the summer. And he used to go to this, it was like a rec center, like a gym or a fancy country club, whatever, and he was like looking for guys who were good at marketing. And this guy literally taught me everything I needed to know about sales, about like getting people to talk honestly to you. So
Yeah. So, okay, so it wasn't Washington Post. Okay, so you go into sales. What the hell is the dovetail? So, listeners, remember what I told you at first? You were co-founder of Talent Sam, and you sold. So, I mean, you're not like, right? You're not. We're not. I'm not talking to a middle level sales manager, right? Like, you've been highly successful in the talent space. How does this? Where's the dovetail? And one theme, by the way, Michael, is I started in the I started in this space because I believed that meritocracy was not captured in traditional talent channels. I believe the resume is bullshit. I believe that, permanent employment made sense a long time ago, but not right now. And so for me, it was always like a deeper thing about like meritocracy needs to be driven through these digital networks and digital profiles, which are talent platforms. But for you, how the hell did you end up getting into this talent space?
sure, yeah, absolutely. I basically like after I finished the army and I was actually finished working on my book, I basically was had to get my first real job. And the problem is I didn't have like much classical experience, so I did what a lot of people do on their resumes, and I lied. I lied a lot in my resume. Okay, I mean, I didn't like say blatant lies. It's not like I
Yeah, yeah,
said
yeah, yeah.
one company, but I kind of exaggerated like an internship here, like an experience there. And my very first job was at a company called AdCore. And as part of I actually applied on LinkedIn. This is like digital recruitment kind of. I was applying on LinkedIn. I knew I was really good at like writing. I could write cover letters and make my resume look good. And I applied for a job at 26 years old for this company, vice president of business development. And they called me back and they said, look, you're not really qualified for that, but we are interested in, you maybe for like a more of a junior position. Are you interested in that? And I was like, yeah, sure. So I go through the interview process. At the very end of it, they wanted me to do like a sales presentation about something I'd sold before. So I kind of like had done like a 2-week project for a friend of mine who actually became huge venture capitalist, like huge guy, who I can't name on this call, but he's like a huge guy. And he basically had he originally he'd like sold this like travel app. It was like the European travel app. Okay. I did work with him a bit on some like, sales stuff, strategic partnerships, but I didn't work there for like a year. And so I basically like took because I was so junior, I was so green when it came to even applying for jobs. I didn't know that my new boss wanted me to like create a presentation from scratch. So I took the presentation my friend gave me and I presented it. And he was like, "Oh, you basically like stole your friend's presentation." Like I didn't do any work on it.
Which Michael, that's called entrepreneurship because I'm sorry, but the Mac was not original. It was Xerox parked, right? So I'm
Right.
sorry, but every
He's
tech has been.
the CEO of mine at Agor is like, and I don't care if he finds this out, right? This is like over 10 years ago. He's like, okay, so you stole your friend's presentation. And then he wanted to like talk to my friend and be like, oh, like, what was Michael like? And then I was like, oh my God, he's going to find out I lied about everything on my resume. And I was delaying and hesitating about like giving them each other's phone numbers. And I was just like, I'm going to be caught. I'm never going to get a job in my life. And and so I ended up giving it to him. And then like, my new boss called me. He's like, "Hey, look, we want to offer you the job. I don't really know what you were so worried about." He said great things about you. He just said he wished you'd stuck around a little longer, not knowing that I was there for like 2 weeks instead of like a year. You know,
Is so funny. So that was your first job.
and that ended being my first job is a company called Adcore, and I started off in this junior role. And after a year, my boss at the time was a really nice Scottish guy. He's still like a mentor of mine. Still like actually was a former Talent Sam partner, like an affiliate partner.
Yeah.
And he left after a year. And after a year, I actually succeeded him and I ended up becoming the actual vice president of business development for this company and building a big sales team and a marketing team and an account management team. And then I eventually moved on to like a different startup called First Impression. where I was the chief revenue officer. First Impression actually was acquired by a different kind of ad tech media company called Front Story, which was kind of like my first like big exit. But something happened to me in 2016 that really did actually change the trajectory of my life, and also into the world of remote work, entrepreneurship, more conventional lead generation, and talent, which is actually that I got really sick. Okay. One day in 2016, I woke up and I was supposed to go on a business trip that day. I was supposed to fly to Germany and Florida from Israel, and I couldn't hear out of my left ear. And I didn't know what to do. I didn't think it was such a big deal, but I went to an ENT, and the ENT saw me kind of at last minute, and he said, listen, you have to go to the hospital so we can save your hearing. He didn't know why. He didn't really explain like why, but basically he diagnosed me with sudden sensorineural hearing loss, which is not really like an explanation of what is wrong. I don't actually have it anymore. I can hear fine. What? No. And essentially like the treatment for it was I ended up getting injected in my ear with very copious amounts of a drug called prednisone. And I had horrific reactions to that. Horrific reactions. Um, Essentially what took me like basically over the next like 2 years while I was at First Impression, um, I really started developing a lot of really debilitating symptoms, a lot of really debilitating health issues. And it kind of got to a point where in early 2019, I actually decided I needed to leave the job, and I needed to actually kind of go on my own little medical mystery tour because I was going to tons of doctors in Israel. I was using Dr. Google trying to figure out what was wrong with me. I was having a lot of different kinds of like nervous system related issues, neurological issues. And the biggest problem, the biggest frustrating thing was that when you kind of go talk to like doctors about some kind of strange issues, they automatically want to like kind of turn it into like an emotional issue. Oh, you must be suffering from depression or anxiety. It was like
And you're
my
like, no, I'm at the top of my life.
I was like, I have like the top life in the world. Like, why do I feel like I wasn't actually like visibly
Yeah.
going like this, but I had horrific, like full body agitation. What I eventually learned, and this, I ended up like having to leave my job. I moved back to the United States. I ended up moving all across the United States and all across Mexico. And I eventually figured out what was wrong with me. And I basically realized that originally the original trigger point was that there was a mold issue in my apartment, which probably triggered the original hearing issue. My immune system is probably depleted. The steroids caused the mold issue, whatever fungal issue, the steroids depleted my immune system and made the fungal infection 10 times worse. And over the next couple of years, while I was trying to figure this stuff out, I developed various co-infections, like other kinds of things. And gradually I just, you know, like was kind of became dysfunctional. And so what I essentially decided to do, and I left Israel to kind of go on this medical mystery tour, I knew I needed to start a business because that's the only way I could have supported myself.
Wow. So, okay. So crazy life. So let me summarize till now. So basically, a daily experiment in life from university, from childhood to now, everything from selling windows and whatever to then living in UAE and Cairo, and then sort of navigating into the sales world and realizing, damn, I'm pretty good at the sales and biz dev thing, right? So
Twice.
then, right, I'm pretty good at this. So then getting to CRO, and this is very common, but then having a very traumatic experience that goes, holy crap, you have to look outside of the traditional world. Now, was the first business Talent Sam, or
First
how? Yeah.
business The first business was actually like a cold email agency called Scale Up Sales, like cold email, go to market, cold calling, LinkedIn. And actually the first, I basically started off, I knew I had to leave my job and kind of like go figure stuff out. I ended up taking on like a part-time consulting role for one of my friends from high school's businesses, which is actually the largest Palestinian technology company. He's
That's
based in
so
America.
cool.
And so basically my thing was I was actually helping Israeli companies hire Palestinian developers and stuff
Ah,
like that. But I mean, I was like truly like I was in a really bad place, like physically, like really like uncomfortable all the time, really like genuinely really sick. I was probably able to work about like 4 or 5 hours a day, and I was like really bumping into a lot of like really kind of goofy stuff. It was actually alternative medicine that did help me out a lot. Actually, a lot of alternative medical technology, but not everything alternative is good. Not everything conventional is bad. Like for
I
sure.
didn't expect this episode to go from alternative talent channels to alternative
Yeah, yeah.
medicine, but I'm all for it.
Well, actually, one of my, basically the first person I hired at First Impression, the previous company, Dan, him and I then decided to start this new business, Scale Up Sales. Dan actually was the one was actually the impetus for going to doing Talent Sam. And then now he's with me at Simera. He's the SVP of growth at Simera. So I've been with Dan now for about 11 years. Uh, Dan like stuck by me when I was like really just kind of a basket case because he knew I could produce and do things. And I know that like 50% Michael is probably better than a lot of like 100%ers, out there. And so basically I built a business from the ground up. It was like basically like a cold email lead generation agency called Scale Up Sales, which I primarily did from 2020. 2019, I was mostly doing the consulting and kind of fumbling around with like a lot of like really, really good. I was in Colorado. I went to a doctor, told me I had to work on my ancestral trauma. And I was like, look, I'm a Jewish person whose ancestry is European and Middle Eastern. We got ancestral trauma. I don't know that's the problem. Okay.
Such a perp. Yeah. So holy crap. And then that business, and then what happened with that business? Did you,
Business was, me and Dan, our core skill sets are really in like, relationship building, communication, and things like that. And the whole cold email industry, we're very good at it. We had a number of very good years. We had like our people, we probably had about 25 clients and 25 like high ticket clients. And so I definitely took, and I started also getting a lot better like around COVID, actually. COVID was actually, I was doing better. I was already like working remotely, staying at home. I was actually in Mexico for it already, and
I
I
was going
got
to
to
ask, so
in
you were in
Mexico for a
Mexico
year.
at this time? So you were in the EST time zone or
Like CST or
CST?
MST,
Okay.
basically. Yeah, yeah. And but I basically was doing scale up sales through 2023, and basically realized that I mean Google was Google, Microsoft, the major email service providers were um, making so many changes when it came to deliverability, and we did not have a technical co-founder. We didn't really know how to ride the wave very well, and we kind of saw the writing on the wall. And I we basically decided that we couldn't let like a Google dependent business really be our end all be all. Google could be like a marketing channel that fluctuates, but we didn't want to be an end all be all. With scale up sales though, the entire business was based off of outsourced talent, remote talent all over the world. We had team members in Mexico, in the Philippines, in India, in South Africa, in the UK. Like not all third world people, there's definitely some first world people as well. And so, and obviously I was remote during this time. As I got better, I started to, I moved from Mexico to South America. I went to Europe for a while. I eventually eventually actually when I was trying to finally establish myself again in Israel, like I was finally gonna like settle down and like I signed an apartment and everything. Then I realized the apartment building didn't have this like form you need from the municipality to actually let everyone move in. So it took me 6 months to move in. What did I do? I moved to Kenya and met my wife. My wife is from Kenya.
It's
Okay.
incredible.
But, the idea for Talent Sam actually came from some of our employees at Scale Up Sales because we ended up actually over time replacing our entire workforce with people in South Africa. And we saw there was like a massive talent pool in South Africa of people that were native English speakers that were very qualified, like really talented, very good, very much like on like a Western level with Western workforce expectations. And Dan, when he was in Israel and I was obviously still fumbling around the world in all different kinds of places, I was actually in yeah, I was trying to figure out how to like bring my wife like leave Africa. So I was primarily in Africa with her for a long time as well. I know the story just gets better and better. Uh Anyways, so he ended up kind of we both realized in 2023 we needed to like figure something else out. We downsized our workforce. We knew we were going to churn a lot of our client base, but we knew we could kind of slow that burn and like reduce like our overhead with the business while we looked for something else to do. And Dan actually met our third partner, Milan, at a networking event in Israel. Milan was like a South African who was living in Israel, and basically Dan and Milan and brought me involved in it, and we all kind of had the idea of doing Talent Sam, which Talent Sam was basically a complete remote hiring solution for companies to hire in South Africa.
So let me ask a couple questions. That's incredible. So first, actually, I want to kind of potentially jump to the end and then come back. In terms of when you mention like, hey, we grow this cold outbound email agency, it's doing really really well, and then you say, but then Google, Microsoft started to change things, and it was just too difficult. Part of part of what that immediately jumps out to me as is when we look at the current AI LLM structure, and if your business is too dependent on one or the other, right? Or even like, and to me, one of the things that we always say is like, listen, AI is incredible. If you think AI is not transformative, then you're an idiot and you just get your head is in the sand. Like this is going to change your life and it's going to disrupt you if you do nothing. With that said, if you don't have the right humans to own and manage the AI, then you're now at the whims of the fact that we can't afford any of this crap, the fact that none of them are really profitable yet, the fact that if they change things, you are dependent. So there's lots of just risk over here that is external to you, but you can control your workforce. So if you have the right people, you're lethal, right? And it doesn't matter if it's Claude or Codex or whatever. So that's the first thing that I hear. Second thing though is I really want to know why South Africa. So it seems like that's definitely been South Africa and Latam have been two of the newer regions. And like what we see from a customer perspective, we see US companies are really starting to fully embrace this. From a company adoption side, the US is by far leading. Yeah, yeah. So by far leading. Europe is like meh, and to say Europe is a gross generalization, but like Spain's doing pretty well. Germany,
Non-EU is good. Non-EU is
non-EU
good.
is good.
Regulation.
Exactly. Exactly.
North
So
Macedonia, baby, they're great.
exactly. So give me the lowdown. And I love that story of like, hey, we were building a company. This way works better. So then we realized, why aren't we going to help more companies do it this way? Right?
Right.
It's like eating your own dog food.
Totally. Listen, I completely agree with you. Just so you know, actually, like how we built Talent Sam primarily is even what we're doing with Simera, we started doing a lot of outbound. It was just at the time doing like an agency model, it just was like too much. Like it just wasn't. Also, the truth is this. I'm going to be really honest with you guys. Like brutally honest. I love sales and business development and relationship building. I also really want like solutions to work. I freaking hate customer success. Like someone's like, oh, I don't know, there's not enough leads, or like, I don't know, my solution doesn't work. I'm gonna do it. I don't care. Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, like, Jorge is not doing a good job recently. Okay, fire him. Whatever. I don't know. What do you want me to say? I know.
Well,
Oh, let's like talk to Jorge and figure out like what's going on in his life. Like, I don't care, man. Like, it's not about
because
Jorge. Jorge's great.
you
Jorge's
don't
always
like having to. You don't like having to. I can already tell. You don't like having to not tell the truth in order to keep a client, right? Which
I hate that.
unfortunately, that's the consulting game is usually say what's best, right?
Totally
Um,
hate that.
but
It's
with
like, yeah, if I'm not providing value for you, and that's the problem also with like an agency like that is you're oftentimes taking on the clients who need the most help, who you may or may not be able to help. And that's a
a
tricky position, you know?
very
But
tricky.
in South Africa, I'll tell you. So, I didn't have a whole lot of like exposure. I mean, I like knew South Africans, and I'd been to South Africa once before, starting the business. But then my wife and I actually decided to get legally married in South Africa. We had a big destination wedding. As I was exploring the Talent Sam opportunity, I went to South Africa, met with Milan. We stayed at his house in Johannesburg. My wife cannot understand a word him or his mom said ever whatsoever. I guess not all Africans can understand each other, but and the big thing with South Africans is it's this is like look it's partially kind of an opportunity based on a lot of the downfall of the country. The country used to have a very strong first world economy, where like one South African rand was the equivalent to like $1 or £1. I forget the comparison, so don't quote me on that. And the currency has dropped a lot. They've had a lot of immigration, but they still actually have the core infrastructure and culture of a certain kind of work, a certain type of education, and a certain type of employment mentality. And so and that's not just the case of the white population. That can also be the black population, the colored population, which is a different designation. I'm not being a 1950s racist. Okay. And uh, and so if for companies that really need employees that can be client facing or really like have like a very good Western orientation, it's there's like a huge opportunity. And I would really say like it's almost like there's a certain kind of like South African accent, mentality, etc. I mean, in South Africa you can have like there's a million different accents. You can not all South Africans are suitable for like US sales jobs and whatnot, but in terms of I would honestly argue that the culture in South Africa is probably better at, let's say, customer de-escalation, customer success, customer support, even than the United States. And the biggest problem I think we have in the US is that you also have a lot of people in America right now. Deep down inside, they don't really want to work. They're very expensive. And I do think that over time, there's probably going to be a democratization of at least the remote economy. Some American salaries might go down, salaries elsewhere go up. I mean, I've met a lot of really great people from all over the world. There's some Filipinos I absolutely adore, Indians I adore. Actually, a lot of the people I hired first, the first people I hired at Simera was an email operations guy from India, a head of data in campaign optimization from India, you know. I mean, I love people from everywhere, but, and I actually believe probably like the next generation, like kids being born now whose parents are involved in this remote workforce, who are able to, they're going to get it to such a degree where I really think it's going to be much closer to like a one-to-one competition in terms of working capability with like, top tier. Right now, like, it's still the case, I think, that hiring offshore, it's a bit of a compromise. Not all, it's a bit of a compromise if your benchmark is like top 50 university educated person working in like a top job in like New York. I mean, these people haven't had the same educational opportunities. It doesn't mean they're not good. It doesn't mean they can't compensate for it. But the next generation, especially with AI and the ability to get a Harvard degree basically from YouTube,
Yep.
okay,
Yep.
it's a whole new ballgame. And like even when I was traveling the Philippines with my wife after we got married, I mean, you go to these guest houses where people had, Filipino English and their kids like basically sound American.
Yep. Which I want to get into. I want to get into the model. And the thing is, I wish we had another 5 hours, Michael. But as part of us both being
Well, uh,
executives, we're like, ah, shit, we're on the clock. Um, so one, I really want to dig in and listen, this is going to be the first of many, right? So I'm so interested to learn more about the model. But when you looked at this from a founder perspective, looking at Talent Sam, did you look and say, hey, there's a staff aug world, there's an agency world, there's a talent marketplace world? How did you decide what model to go with? And then what model did you go with? Is this a I pay you $10,000 a month, you provide everything for me? Is this a we just directly place this individual and you can negotiate rates with them or whatever?
yeah, yeah.
What's your
Talent Sam
model?
was different. Talent Sam, the first thing we basically did was we tried to sell it. The idea was we wanted to be able to create a service where it was totally all encompassing of recruitment, hiring, and human resources. What does that really mean? Obviously, recruitment's at the core thing. I can find you a great person, whatever. And we believed, of course, that, working with South Africans, it was going to be easier to work with a smaller data set to find those great people, which was largely true, not 100% true, but largely true. Um, the hiring angle and the human resources was the big thing that we were trying to advocate for, which meant that good people did not want to work with you as a freelancer. Okay. Also, South Africa has very strict employment laws whereby if a person from South Africa is working for a US business and the US business is their only client, you're basically at risk of misclassification
Yes.
for not really being this person's real employer. And you are, I mean, whether or not you want to ignore a lawsuit from South Africa as your business, but you are at risk. And finding good people, the real good people in South Africa who are looking for full-time work, they want an employer of record. They want HR. They don't want to just work with some two guys in a WeWork in Orange County who were like, trust
On
me,
a
bro.
gig
Yeah,
basis.
the
Yeah.
gig, if you want the gig basis, there's a model for that. The Upwork model is fine, but we're even at Simera, we're not competing with the gig basis.
Yep. And what when you mentioned the misclassification, like what is the like very quick like differences? Like is there 3 month severance requirements? Is like what is the yeah.
I mean, first of all, I mean, South Africa does make it very easy to basically take an employer who they feel wrongfully terminated them to basically their version of like a labor court. Severance is not like such a big deal. I mean, you automatically have a 90-day probationary period and it really is pretty good if you're not sure about somebody to make a quick decision within 90 days. But there's tax. It's a lot more of like I would say it's much more of a Western European system than I would say Latin American countries are more Americanized in a way because they're the default outsourced country that was giving them a lot of people jobs is the U.S. People don't necessarily get automatic healthcare. Healthcare is largely privatized. South Africa kind of came out of the opposite. It's sort of like a crumbling Western European social services system. And if you can kind of imagine a lot of the regulation that comes out of Europe and how difficult it is, the data storage, and you can't keep people's resumes, and you can't do all these different things. That kind of has made European growth anemic. South Africa kind of has the same thing.
Interesting. So you okay, which
So
we'll
we took
talk
on all
about
this. We opened a proper company. We were doing proper. We were handling all of the technology. We were delivering computers to these people's homes in South Africa, which is there's no guarantee it's not going to get like robbed. Like the career is not going to get hijacked. We were doing actual HR. We were not overseeing the work. We were not like a full managed services solution, but we were like giving the employee enough confidence that we were like a real outfit, which we were a real outfit. And there was a real person to talk to. There was real mediation in case there was like an employment dispute. And we attracted clients that were also looking for a long-term hiring solution as well with that level of support. The
And
place we
yeah,
went wrong though with the business, which we didn't totally anticipate, we actually invested a lot in building technology on that HR management side. So everything related to payroll, tax, compliance, legal, we could literally take care of with the press of a button. And Milan was responsible for building that along with some developers we hired. So on the HR front, we were incredible. But on the actual sourcing side, as we saw, we did more and more roles. The oh yeah, South Africans are really great started to kind of not work out as well because the roles became more varied. The experience was very varied. You see, you have certain churn with certain roles and certain profiles of people, either the employee quitting or the employer deciding to fire. And also, the more volume of roles we got, we might have been very good at signing master services agreements, but our recruitment was not fast enough to really compete and like with solutions that had a real AI recruitment angle.
yeah. Which
And that
so
was
tell
where,
me about
yeah.
Simera before we hop because we got to hop in 5. But tell me about Simera and tell me from founder to founder why the acquisition. And I ask that because I think that'll dovetail into why Simera as well. Because I think what you're saying of the sourcing became too difficult. What we also see is
We were just slow. We were just kind of
so,
slow.
so a talent business and this is where like as a me being in tech and being a SaaS founder prior, like usually in tech, getting to 0 and 1 is bloody hard, right? And then 1 to 100 is great. This industry is the exact opposite. It's like getting from 0 to 1 is really easy. Getting from like 1 to 10 is like moderately hard. Getting from 10 to 100 is fucking impossible. It can feel like. So I'm not surprised to hear that, but yeah, give me Samara, give our audience a
Time.
teaser and then to reach out to you. Yeah.
Yeah, sure. So last September, Simera actually reached out to me by LinkedIn, like one person from Simera's team, a lovely woman named Sophia, who's like our chief innovation officer. And she said that they basically were looking for to get into the South Africa market specifically. They really wanted like a talent base in South Africa. They're looking to either from a partnership, like acquire like some kind of South Africa based business to basically increase headcounts and maybe some other nice things. And they had some executive assistant find South African outsourcing companies that had nice websites. And so we came up, and that was how they first got in touch. Around the same time, we were already actually working with we were starting to build our own like video resume system to make it much easier. That was like automatic, like we could basically transpose someone's resume into that. And we had the dream of basically having a search function to basically go through large amounts of candidate data. And Simera was basically 95% of the way towards already building that. And so as we were talking with Simera, the conversation lasted about 7, 8 months or so. Samara basically, and the deal changed a lot and all that, mostly because what we all kind of agreed upon was that, first of all, our headcount was relevant. Like they did actually want the foothold in South Africa. That was very relevant and the know-how and how to manage like an actual business on the ground there. And like they did, partially acquire us for headcount. The second thing was, they did actually see how a lot of how we manage the HR function post hire was applicable. That was actually something they've not really been focusing on very much. There was like a technical integration, and they specifically wanted me, Milan, and Dan to join their executive team to basically head up different areas of the business. Also, partially because of they wanted the CEO Panos is a much bigger believer in acquiring people rather than hiring people. So the company is currently raising a Series B of financing, and needed to put like the team together, and thought that given our experience that adding us 3 people to their 6 people team was a good idea. And what attracted us about Simera was Simera's vision. So Simera's vision is basically 2 different components. The first component is proprietary verified candidate data. Everyone who signs up for Simera fills out an application that basically makes their profile. In Simera's platform, our own AI guides you through and iterates with you on what you need to do to make yourself as hireable as possible. There's like an AI interviewer, okay, that helps you make a video. If you're missing components or missing samples of your work, it helps you do that. And the system's also cross-referencing and verifying based on your behavior, based on publicly available information, essentially if what you're saying is true. So I would not have passed the Simera test with my experiment back in 2015. So thank gosh that was
which
thank
is a
God.
great sales motion. Which okay, so unfortunately, we got to hop.
Yeah.
But
Right.
with that said, where can our listeners find you, Michael? And this is going to be the first. This is going to be the first of many, man, because I think this future of work, whatever we want to call it, we're still in like inning two, and I really feel like I say I'm like, hey, we're radically rewiring the way the world works, and
Sure.
that works is in so many different ways, right? We're just simply the talent portion of that. But where can our listeners find you? And yeah,
Back alleys, sidewalk.
Cairo or UAE? Which one?
I'll be going to Brazil and Argentina for 8 weeks with my wife and son, which is a lot of fun. Just because I mean, as the years go by, that the opportunities to do that will be less and less. Just because we want to have more children, and there does come a time when their stability matters more than my wanderlust. Uh, Not really though. We'll just do shorter trips, but 8 weeks is tough. Okay. Uh, you're welcome to connect with me on LinkedIn. You're welcome to find me on other social media channels. I'm a Facebook, LinkedIn guy. My wife is responsible for the family TikTok and Instagram and stuff. My email address is michael at Simera.me. It's at michael at Simera.me. Yeah, I'm happy. I always love, random, messages, connection requests, etc. And if you have something interesting you want to talk about, you just want to learn more, or you want to, even like, pitch me something, like, more than happy to listen. So
Love it, Michael. Thank you for hopping on, man.
sure. Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.